Okay, so two of the most important terms to learn when you're getting into hobby board gaming are these terms American style or Ameritrash and European style or Euro games, also known sometimes as just Euros. These used to have to do with origin. In fact, Euro games used to be referred to as German style board games or German board games back when that's where the US was getting a lot of these styles of games. But now you see American style board games being produced in Europe and plenty of European style board games produced in the US. Still, the terms have stuck, so that's what we use. The main split between these two types has to do with theme versus mechanisms. American style board games put theme first, and they tend to have themes that are very exciting. So they tend to be about piracy in the Caribbean. Or space empires clashing for control of the galaxy. Squads of soldiers engaging each other. That sort of thing. European games tend to be more pastoral in their themes. A lot of games about farming or building cities. Or becoming the best merchant. They're about building things. American style board games are often about fighting and destroying things or building empires, that sort of thing. And remember, your European style board games are going to put mechanics above themes, so they tend to be less exciting looking on the table unless you're really into that sort of thing, as I am. That carries through into the sorts of mechanisms and the level of player interaction that you'll see in those. American style board games tend to be much higher conflict. There's a lot more direct fighting going on between the players. Whereas on the European side, you're going to see more passive-aggressive conflict. People may outmaneuver you to take things that you want or block things that you're going to go for, whether they need them or not. They may take control of areas that you were hoping to take control of or used to have. But that's not the same thing as invading your space and breaking your things, which you'll see more on the American side. In order to amp up the thematic feel of American games, you're much more likely to see random aspects tied in with success and how successful you are. So in an American style game, you're much more likely to have somebody roll to see if they succeed in an attack, for example, or how well they succeed in an attack, or both. On a European style game, you're not going to see that. There's less randomness, and when you see it, it tends to be either affecting all players equally or being a factor of what's available. But when you collect your resources and then you turn around to use them to, say, build a building, there's not a risk that that building is going to fall down based on a die roll like you might see in that sort of situation on the American side. Because American games are much more thematically based, you're a lot more likely to see miniatures in them. Whereas on the European side, you're much more likely to see basic representational shapes, particularly cubes and discs made out of wood. A lot of cubes and a lot of discs on the European side of things. Also, these little figures carved out of wood that are affectionately referred to as meeples. You can make a rough guess when you look at something on the table. If you see a lot of plastic, it's a safe guess that it's an American style game. If there's a lot of wood, you're probably looking at a European style board game. Doesn't happen that way every time, but that's often the case. These are some really important terms to talk about because they're used a lot in the hobby. If somebody says, oh, that's a light Euro game, or that's a long Ameritrash game, you will immediately know what sort of game they're talking about based on this split.